Hey, Nationals policy teams. The video here you weren't expecting, but is a 1AC that you might see at Nationals. And so, what I'd like you to do over the next couple of days is flow it, type out some questions or video some questions that you would like to ask me about it, and I'll be happy to answer those back. I'll also send you a digital copy of the case so that you can read over it. And then maybe try by Wednesday or Thursday of this week to record a 1NC against it with whatever off-case arguments you plan on reading. So, for example, while in the errand, you'll be reading a completely different set of arguments than Ayman and Zari will be. But I want you to read your arguments that you would read if this was the 1AC that you were hearing. I want you to then take the arguments that you're listening to and record them. I will then try to create a 2AC against them. That way we can have as much of a virtual debate as possible. But so you can also be practicing your speaking abilities and making sure that you're understanding exactly what's good and bad. Okay? So feel free, of course, to email me questions or Facebook me questions, and I'll get them to you as soon as I possibly can. Okay? With that said, we'll go ahead and get started. Contention 1 is inherency. The status quo is moving towards less lunch availability for students. Recent House bills proved this. Back in 2018, children receiving school lunches for free or at reduced price under federal assistance programs could lose the subsidy. 2,369 children could lose their subsidized school lunches because of families that lose benefits to the state's food stamp programs known as food share. That means families with a household income of more than 130% of the federal poverty level would no longer be able to automatically be identified as eligible to receive free and reduced priced meals, requiring families to find and fill out paperwork on their own in order to continue receiving the benefits. Thus, the plan. The United States federal government should substantially increase funding for federally subsidized school lunches in elementary and secondary schools in the United States, including requiring regulating nutritional content within the lunches. And contention 2 is food. First, food insecurity is a socioeconomic issue that prohibits low-income children and children of color from receiving adequate, healthy meals, resulting in physical and mental implications. Meisenheimer in 2016. Childhood is a crucial phase of physical and emotional development. Food insecurity in early years is particularly detrimental, such as reduced access to healthcare and unstable housing. Poor nutrition and food insecurity are associated with poor health, but in young children, they often affect the well-being and development. 48 million people lived in food insecure households. It's crucial that policymakers ensure that young children have access to good nutrition. Food insecurity does not impact all children equally, contributing to the opportunity gap and racial disparities. Children of color are more likely to experience food insecurity. Policymakers must consider the disproportionate impact food insecurity has upon young children of color, and this is an a priori issue. Food insecurity in young children implicates the entire lives and creates a cycle of poverty and social divisions. Let's see, from Deeds in 15. The availability and quality of food affect children's health as well as their brain development. Research indicates that food insecure children have almost twice as likely to be impaired poor health and more likely to be hospitalized. The child's social and emotional health are also at risk. This can lead to behavioral issues that affect not only home life but school life as well. Food insecure students not only fully engage in daily activities with peers at school. Wide bodies of research indicate that these consequences follow children in the classroom, often resulting in poor academic performance. Growing up in food insecure has consequences even beyond K-12 education. Workers who experience hunger as children are not as well prepared mentally, physically, emotionally, or socially performing effectively in the workforce. Various physical, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive cost of food insecurity make it extremely difficult for these students to reach their full potential. And malnutrition during childhood uniquely inhibits critical human development in the children, which leads to irreversible long-term damage. Nayadi in 13. Schooling builds health and well-being. More education has been linked to better jobs, higher income, higher socioeconomic status, better health care, and increase in personal control and self-esteem. Academic achievement is most important for personal future health. A significant concern for public health. Cognitive development is influenced by nutrition. Nutrients provide building blocks that play a critical role in cell proliferation, DNA synthesis, and metabolism. Brain development is faster in early years of life, which may make it vulnerable to dietary deficiencies. The development of frontal lobes appear to occur between 7 and 9 years of age and 15. Individual brain development follows a genetic program which is influenced by environmental factors such as nutrition. It has been shown in studies that nutrition is one of the most salient environmental factors, that nutrition can have a direct effect on gene expression. The timing of nutritional deficiencies can significantly affect brain development because the irreversible change in the brain structure and function occur. Structural reorganization of the brain and cognitive malnutrition and development take place during puberty, and this outweighs everything the negative says. Food insecurity culminates in systemic food oppression that undermines the survivability of marginalized groups. Only the affirmative attempts to alter the institutional nature of high demand for low-cost, non-nutritious food can solve this. Freeman in 13. Food oppression arises from the institutionalized food-related policies and practices that undermine marginalized groups, compounded by the depending effects of the local oppression. Government policy and action almost always appear couched in neutrality. The primary goal of applying food oppression analysis is to effect the change. Food oppression analysis seeks to uncover and name the racial and socioeconomic subordination and to guide the development of policy to transform the structural underpinning of the subordination. The theory of food oppression can guide broader strategies for change with the goal of identifying and revising entrenched patterns of subordination in addition to resolving the specific programs and independently rollback of healthy reduced cost lunch programs promotes a lunch shaming culture where children are penalized for parents' inability to pay for lunches. Siegel in 17, Gorilla said her daughter qualified for free lunch, but a paperwork mix-up created an outstanding balance. Holding children publicly accountable for unpaid school bills is a lunch shaming. The practice is widespread, and nearly half of all Odessans use some form of shaming to compare parents to pay the bills. It's fundamentally a right versus wrong decision. The kid needs a meal he's going to eat, but feeding hungry children whose families have meal debt does not solve the problem for the schools. The solution is federal free meal program. Creeps has seen the lasting effects of lunch shaming. Her adult son refused to eat peanut butter because it reminds him of middle school when students in debt were sent to a table to make peanut butter sandwiches. The humiliation has persisted for 20 years, and you should reject this on point. Children are uniquely susceptible to disproportionately being impacted by school lunch shaming and food insecurity. Even though the affirmative doesn't solve every single instance, it's still a necessary step. McSilver Research Institute in 2015, childhood food insecurity poses a considerable risk, including adverse effects on health, growth, academic development, outcomes, insecurity, and psychological stress affect people in a myriad of ways, including mental illness. The effect of food insecurity on the mental health of children are even more profound than the effects of adults. Growing body of research illustrates the negative consequence of food insecurity for children's development, behavior, and mental health outcomes. We must strive to eliminate food insecurity among children, and programs like free school breakfast and lunch programs are necessary and vital to reach this goal. And the plan is key for 3 reasons. First, the affirmative increased the availability of lunches for low-income children and streamlines the reforms to increase food access and resolve the conditions that lead to lunch shaming. Hong in 15, the HHFKA has positively impacted low-income children participation and play an especially important role in minimizing the expensive administrative burden to school districts. The guarantee of free and reduced lunch is essential for eligible students' health and well-being. School meals also help students achieve greater academic success. Increased participation for at-risk students means that children have access to food, which is a basic human need, should continue to be addressed. And second is that rollback nutritional standards disproportionately impacts low-income and minority students' access to healthier options. The plan solves this. Hassan in 17, it's low-income and minority students who eat school meals. These kids are already under the least health, and newly relaxed nutrition guidelines could further worsen their diets. This is also a group with the highest rates of obesity. To relax sodium and milk restriction will disproportionately affect the kids into adulthood. There is a direct link between sodium and sugar and obesity and diabetes. And 3, the affirmative leads to healthier eating habits that act as a stopgap remedy to food insecurity. Think Progress in 2015 says, researchers at Ohio State found that fast food causes memory loss, slows down cognitive development. Childhood obesity has more than doubled. It is hard to prepare healthy meals because they live in an area with high food insecurity. Funds haven't suffered in connecting low-income people with high-quality meals, and the American Association of Heart has spoken out in support of keeping the HHFKA. High levels of sodium food and frozen and junk food can lead to heart disease or stroke. Children are often healthier because kids act. The more children are exposed to nutritious foods, the more they accept and eating healthy, and it is setting them up for a lifetime of healthy eating habits. And contention 3 is academics. First, healthy lunches are the biggest factor for student success. The best medical studies prove that unhealthy lunches undermine academic performance, and the affirmative is necessary to promote optimal learning environment. Anderson in 17. A lengthy medical literature examining the link between diet and cognitive development and function. The literature focuses on how specific nutrients are thought to affect physical development. A new study that measures the effect of offering healthy public school lunches on test scores. In years with school contracts, a healthy lunch company, the students score better on the end of year academic tests. The test scores increase about 40% larger for students who qualify for a reduced price. The value of providing healthier lunches is true even when accounting for the potential short and long-term health benefits such as reduction of childhood obesity and the development of healthier eating and market eating. And declining test scores undermine the U.S. competitiveness and economic strength. UN 16. The consequence of the U.S. weak performance on already being seen in the country's workforce. The U.S. ranks 17th in literacy and 27th in numeracy. The U.S. competitiveness has been declining over time, with the most recent high school graduates ranking near the bottom globally. For the U.S. to maintain economic competitiveness, Americans must be able to demonstrate higher order literacy and numeracy skills. And finally, economic competitiveness is necessary for U.S. power projection. This checks escalatory war and deters China and terrorism. Banks in 16. America's manufacturing dropped, the trade deficit increased. Average economic growth showed the debt has skyrocketed. America's power flows directly from its economic strength. The ability to influence other nations as a result of competitive advantage. Growth in the trade deficit is a clear indicator of American decline. When Chinese experts are increasing technology sectors, incredibly important industries, U.S. power and prestige protect competitiveness necessary, reversing the relative decline. Trump views growing the economy as a critical rebuilding military. The competitiveness of U.S. industry is key to America's ability to project power and challenge terror, and the rise of China require our strategic alliance and policies. Okay, so that's the affirmative. If you have questions, I apologize, by the way, about the camera stuff because I didn't realize how that was all going to play out. You'll notice that I didn't read the Jing evidence in contention 3. I literally just wrote this case a few minutes ago, so I hadn't timed it out yet. So if you have questions, feel free to let me know. Flow it first, and then I will give you the actual copy of the case so you can look it over, and then let me know when you float it. Okay? Thanks so much. Bye.